You've been driving for a while and you feel like you've hit a plateau and you're just not improving anymore. You've upgraded your hardware, but you're still not able to be as fast as you would like. Well, guess what? I did that too, okay? I'm as guilty as you are. And that's exactly why Racine and myself created what we call the advanced way to learn. By using the techniques that we're about to show you, we were able to win national championships, and we're now coaching real-life drivers and sim racers all across the globe. So let me tell you why you absolutely need this to improve your racing skills. On this platform, you'll go through 5 learning steps. The first one is going to be to watch video lessons so you can take in all that theory. The second step will be to answer quizzes. We've created some questions to test your knowledge. Next, you'll have to partake in challenges. Here, you'll have to prove to yourself that you can apply what you've learned. You'll go on track and you'll try to beat the instructor's lap times or sector times. Following the challenge, you'll be able to send your onboard replay so instructors and other community members can help you improve. And lastly, you can get involved in the community to meet some new teammates and learn from others. This platform is a back and forth discussion between us, the instructor, and you, the students. If you're serious about becoming the best driver out there, this is the advanced way to learn.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Descended on the Hungaroring for week 4 of season 4 of 2024 for the LMP3 GT4 challenge. All of the force, it seems, tonight here in the PRL. It's a circuit that's going to demand a lot of rhythm from the drivers. Can Boris Angelovando and Aiden Young continue their winning form from last week, or will they be pegged back a touch as we see some new drivers enter a championship frame? My name up in the RaceSpotTV commentary box here on your Monday night PRL action is myself, Darren Thacker, and joined as always by Reese Gardner in the booth. Hugo Luis is doing the buttons, pressing it all and making the broadcast look pretty. Reese. Welcome in, Reese. I'm really looking forward to this race. Oh, those two drivers aren't. They've had some issues early on. But this looks like it's going to be a circuit. It's going to provide a little bit of fun, some good racing action, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, indeed. The Hungaroring, built in the mid-1980s, first track to host a Formula One race behind the Iron Curtain, and it's a very twisty track indeed. It's going to be much like Road Atlanta last week, I imagine. Drivers are going to have a lot of trouble navigating each other when the LMP3s come around to lap the GT4s. We're going to we're in a bit of a string of tracks that are a bit difficult for multi-class racing. We're going to Manicourt next week, and then Laguna Seca, all tracks that have very fast corners, not much space between the turns, and it's going to be interesting for sure. We go to Hockenheim, Algarve, and the Red Bull Ring to end off the season. Tracks with longer straights and heavy braking zones, which means the whatever traffic issues may or may not arise, we should be able to be over it by the time we get to round 7. But the drivers have been talked to a bit by the stewards, and we'll be hoping that it's nice and clean out there tonight.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Magny-Cours next week. It's going to be a great race at a circuit that many of these drivers won't be terribly familiar with. In the standings, though, as we come into this race, we've had 3 rounds, so we're getting a better picture of where we sit, and it's Boris Angelovando who has taken a bit of a lead. 2 wins in 2 for him, and he has a 16-point advantage over 2-time pole sitter this season, Mobin Khan. Zach Hebert's in the battle as well in P3, with Christian Garreton and Michael Diaz 4th and 5th. Don't count out Stephen Lakota, though. He's tied with Michael Diaz in 5th, with Ian Starker, Lando Tager, Nikos Sanadakis and Daniel Oliver rounding out your top 10 in the LMP3s. Over in the teams, though, it's Solprek Precision Racing, who have quite a commanding lead at the moment ahead of Speed Squad, with Why Not P1, Scuderia Dunkersor LMP3, what a name, in P3, with Grant's Garage and Echelon Simsport LMP3 in the top 5. Drive Trainer Motorsport, Sim Total Races, Championship Racing Collective, Maradness M Squad, and the Fedson Brothers round out the top 10. Over in the LMP4, the GT4s, I should say, it's our usual suspects at the top. It's Aaron Myers and Aidan Young. Matthew Wyckoff, though, he's keeping the top 2 honest, and he is in P3. Kate Smith and Michael Terrafino, they're tight together for 4th and 5th, with Jeremy Minella in the top 6. Woody Brennan, Gabriel Gignac, Matt Benson, and Maxime David, the top 10 drivers for the time being, but you can just see how close that championship battle is. Over in the teams, it's Chasing the Delta, who have quite a nice advantage. Team Beef trying to chase them down tonight with Vision Esports inside the top 3. Valhalla Motorsports and Hyperion Racing in the top 5 with Fiercely Forward, No Team, middle of the pack Racing, Scuderia Dunkersor, and Hamster Racing inside that top 10. But before we get to all of the racing action this evening, I think we have to say a few words for our sponsors who make these broadcasts possible. Firstly, to Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox Sim Racing offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Buttkicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every single game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself into the driver's seat with Buttkicker. Maradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Marad. Mr. Head iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. It is, of course, a great addition to any sim room. And Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on all of their socials to become a better driver. Of course, we thank all of our sponsors who make these PRL broadcasts possible. 5 nights a week as well. So we really do thank them. But now, on to the on-track action. In towards qualifying, Chasing the Delta are going to be looking for a good result tonight here, Reese. Of course, they're leading the team's championship. Aaron Myers and Matthew Wyckoff. I mentioned it being a week for the 4s. Matthew Wyckoff, the number 4. Could it be his week? He's up in P3. This could be quite a tense battle with those two at the front.
Yeah, absolutely it could. Aaron Myers having some really good runs here this season. He and Aidan Young obviously as close to neck and neck as you like, as always, the same as last season. Jason Drescher currently on provisional pole in the LMP3s, checking out the number 29 as he makes his way around the circuit here for his next qualifying lap. 1 minute 39.4 current quickest time, but the fastest drivers in LMP3 got into the mid 1 minute 38s in practice, so we're expecting a little bit more out of these cars as the session ticks away. Next lap on the board for Jason. It did not count, apparently. And probably a good time for me to bring up that here at Hungaroring, it's very easy to get off tracks.
Isn't it? I mean, you can think about most of the circuit. Turn 1, turn 3, you can go wide. Turn 4, you can try and cut 6 and 7. Then there's 11 where you can go wide. I mean, it is a real trap for track limits, and drivers are going to have to be careful about that. And that might be why we have seen very few valid lap times in the session to this point. Chase Wilson's gone 4th, but 13 times in the LMP3, that's at least 5 or 6 who haven't been able to set a lap time. Only 11 valid lap times in the GT4s. I mean, drivers are really going to have to get it together quickly. This could put pressure on some of the guys in the GT4s that are looking for a good result to kind of keep up their momentum. I mean, we've got the top 3 there or thereabouts, but Kate Smith's not there at the moment. Michael Terrafino isn't in the top 6 either. These are drivers that need times on the board quickly.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be quite difficult to get those times in. Well, one person that's just gotten a time in is Michael Terrafino in the Mercedes GT4. He's gone to 4th behind Myers, Young, and Wyckoff. Terrafino has emerged as one of the drivers who's, a bit outside the bubble when it comes to winning in the GT4 category, but he's always a factor in the races. And I think Jason Drescher also a bit of a factor in the LMP3s here as he comes around once again to the final corner. We'll see if this lap ends up counting. Boris Ovando now on provisional pole, and a 139.1 for Drescher brings him to within a couple of tenths or thereabouts of Boris Ovando. Meanwhile, there's Aiden Young, the reigning champion in the GT4 category, but he's been losing out a little to Aaron Myers this season. His season has mainly been affected by Suzuka in round 2, where he started from the pits and ultimately suffered a couple of issues on his way to I think it was an 8th place finish or thereabouts. He was just outside the top 6 at the very least. So Aiden's hoping to get his season back on track here and maybe get pole position in that fiercely forward Mercedes. 1 minute 50.7 there for Aiden. That's going to make him remain in 2nd place in GT4 for now. Michael Diaz, teammate of Boris Ovando at Solpec Precision Racing, they finished 1-2 last round at Road Atlanta, though they did make a little bit of contact in turn 1 on their way to it.
Yeah, it wasn't all friendly, was it, throughout the race at Road Atlanta? Note on Aiden Young, he is looking tonight for his 9th win in 12, just to hammer home how good he's been of late in the GT4 series. Of course, we had 45 minutes last season on a Monday night when the races were 45 minutes. He was so dominant, 6 wins over the season, 6 wins in the last 8 races there, 2 in the first 3 here. He really does show form when it matters. Aaron Myers, though, you've almost got to feel bad for him. So much consistently in the battle. He only got 1 win last season. Aiden Young got 6th. In the end, the championship gap was 21 points. So he's always there. Even if he's not quite getting the wins, he's getting 2nd place, and he's keeping Aiden Young honest. And that's exactly what he's doing here. Looking for yet another pole for Aaron Myers this season, which is looking very, very nice in the opening few rounds. Matthew Wyckoff playing a bit of a supporting role to his teammate at the moment, Aaron Myers, and looking to try and push Aiden Young back to row number 2 and maybe try and act as a little bit of a rear cannon to help protect Aaron Myers in the front of the race. Matthew Wyckoff looking for pole himself, I'm sure, through the final couple of corners. But this is going to be quite a key race, I think. We're into week 4. The fact that Aiden Young had that issue at Suzuka means he's still behind, even though he's got 2 wins out of 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Just goes to show how much one race can affect you. As a 151.4 there for Wyckoff. That's a 10th off his fastest lap so far. Yeah, Aiden, I think, is going to be quite happy that there'll be a drop round this season, but, you know, consider all things considered, he might be able to continue fighting for the championship from here. He's got to make sure that he gets to the finish cleanly and manages to push Aaron Myers in that battle for the GT4 class lead. Jeremy Minella, meanwhile, a little bit of oversteer through the twisty back section of the circuit as the checkered flag flies. It's a hard cut to the end of the session as we get ready for our 1 hour race. But before that, we have to check out a lap around the Hungaroring for the pole laps in both of our classes. Boris Ovando and Daniel Zegers are your top two, in the LMP3 class. And I presume we'll be seeing Boris Ovando's lap first. You know, this circuit is so twisty. It's all about mid-corner speed around here. You need a car that responds well on the front end. And this front straight here, Dara, coming into turn 1, this is basically one of the only places on the circuit where you can make a clean pass without losing time.
Yeah, I think it's a circuit that generally, if this was a single class race, we'd be sitting here talking a lot about rhythm and how important that is at the start of a race, particularly when it's a 1 hour long race. But in this multi-class event with the LMP3s and the GT4s, you're going to find it difficult to find some of that rhythm if you're in the LMP3s, particularly as you're going to find yourself tripping over some GT4s at regular intervals. But you don't want to be tripping over them coming up here towards the middle sector. Turn 4 is a flick left. It is not an overtaking place unless you are incredibly bold and brave and have most of the car alongside. Turn 5 going to be much quicker for these LMP3s than the GT4s. We'll see that difference in a minute. But here at 6 at 7, the tight little chicane, this is where we're going to see probably a similar pace between the two classes. Now, the middle sector, through turns 8 to 11, it's just flowing left to right, swing it back to the left before getting it to this fast right-hander and Reese. These are the kind of corners here at turn 11 that are going to make or break your lap.
Yeah, indeed. You got to make sure you don't run too far over that curb there on the exit, otherwise you'll get an off track or you'll unsettle your car. Faster than it looks, this right-hander, and it looks like we're bringing ourselves in very nicely here on Boris Ovando's onboard. It's quite a difficult final sequence as well. This last corner, you got to try and keep the speed up at the apex, but also round it up for the run onto the straight and to the start-finish line. Ultimately, that was a 138.598 for Boris Ovando. And then Aaron Myers, pole lap in the GT4s. It takes a very different approach in a GT compared to a prototype. These guys don't have as much downforce. Their cars aren't sprung as stiffly. They rely on mechanical grip, cornering speeds round about the same when it comes to the slow corners. But I think on this lap, Dara, you'll see the middle sector is much harder work in this Porsche Cayman.
And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the action tonight between the LMP3s and the GT4s. The LMP3s are going to be that little bit quicker, but it's not wide enough to really make use of that generally and to make those moves. And so we'll see what Aaron Myers, or how it seems or looks for Aaron Myers through this middle sector in this GT4. Of course, a little bit heavier, a little bit slower. We've come to know this over the past season or past few seasons in this car, and it's going to be interesting just to see how this works out for Aaron Myers. Into 6 and 7, tipping his wheels fully over the curbs, bouncing over that sausage curb pretty heavily actually on the inside of the second part of the chicane, but then we're into the middle sector, the meat of it, through the left, through the right. You can just see how much rotation is having to be put into the car, and just not much being done by the car itself. Really has to be done mechanically. Into turn 11, you can see how much slower it is than the LMP3s. This run out of turn 11 towards turn 12, I think is going to be critical, isn't it? Because this is where the LMP3s are going to target getting through, and they may get a little bit greedy on the brakes into 12. Yeah,
they certainly are. Well, Myers ultimately rounded to the final turn and set a 1 minute 50.561. So the GT4s round about 12 seconds slower than the LMP3s around a lap here at the Hungaroring, which means, considering minute 38, minute 40 for the LMP3s, looks like we're going to be seeing about 8 or so laps of clean action between the two classes before they come together and the LMP3s start lapping. So keep an eye on that critical number. Around about lap 7, lap 8 is where you're going to start seeing them catch up.
Yeah, it's going to be really critical, I think, in the early stages for the LMP3s, the likes of Boris Angel Lavando, to get away from the rest of the pack. We talk about this a lot, and we talked about it quite a bit during last week's GTP GT3 series at Zolder, that the further up the grid you are in a race like this, the exponential improvement that you're going to be able to see when you meet the traffic is incredible. If you have if you start on pole and you're able to get away at the front by 2 to 3 seconds, that gap is going to grow, because you're going to meet the GT4s and you're going to be able to get through them pretty easily. But then when you get to the guys further back are going to have a lot more of a difficult time. But here is the grid then, as we're going to line up to get ready for this race at the Hungaroring. It is championship leader Boris Angel Lavando who will lead us to green. Daniel Zegers on the front row alongside him. Michael Diaz, Zegers' teammate, is in P3 ahead of Jason Drescher, who's on row number 2. Christian Garreton and P3 man in the championship, Zach Hebert, will be on row 3 as we see Daniel Oliver, Chase Wilson, Stephen Lakota and Ian Starker running out the top 10. It's Eric Fenson and Fernando Rodriguez on row 6, and they're nearly 2 seconds off of the pole time already back here. Needing to find a little bit of time, it seems, in the race. Maybe they've got a little bit of race pace to unlock, but they will start from row 6. We will roll on to see Lucas Wallace and Lando Tager on row 7, Nico Sanadakis and Chris Massey on row 8. And two-time pole sitter this season, Mobin Khan, will only start P17. A lot of work for the 64 to do. We'll see where he can go. Aaron Myers, though, taking yet another pole. Make that his, I think that's his 3rd pole of the season. Indeed it is. Here at the Hungaroring, Aidan Young, his championship rival, lines up P2. Matthew Wyckoff, his teammate, will be P3, so an interesting top 3 there, with Kurt Ham on row 2 alongside Wyckoff. Terrafino and Caelan Tobin are on row 3 as we look further back to Gabriel Guignac and Jeremy Minella. Matt Benson and Roman Foe, who are inside the top 10. Tristan Cadet and Steve Gow are on row 6, and it's not much bidding, those two. Only a couple of hundredths there, with Lambert Jesse, Roy Brown, Mikey Smith and Travis Pruitt in the top 16. We see Maxime David and Jean Sebastian Bedard rounding out row number 9. That's 35 drivers, make it 36. Justin Bracken is the 19th and final driver in the GT4 class. We have 17 in the LMP3s, 19 in the GT4, slightly smaller than usual, Reese, but I still think we're not going to be short on action.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very fun time here today. 73 Fahrenheit air temperature, 82 Fahrenheit track temperature. That is 28 degrees Celsius for those of you in metric land. Green flag flies and we're racing in the LMP3s.
It's Boris Angel Lavando who leads us to green. He's looking for 3 wins from 3 if he can get it down to turn 1 in the lead. He's going to feel a lot more confident after that. The two teammates, the Sole Track Precision Racing, going side by side, maybe looking to challenge Boris Angel Lavando to the inside at turn 1, with Lavando going a little bit wide. Can he get the drive off the corner? The answer is not really, no. Michael Diaz is looking to go from 3rd to 1st here if he can make the move on our championship leader. Lavando has the inside though through turn 2 as we see the start in the GT4s, as Aaron Myers is losing the position to Aidan Young as they run their way through. Side by side for the lead in the LMP3, side by side for the lead in the GT4s, and it isn't over yet into turn 2.
No, certainly isn't. Myers is pressuring Young there into turn 3 as it looks like Ovando's defended from Zegers, but Zegers gets a tap from behind by Jason Drescher, and unfortunately that almost results in a change for 2nd in the LMP3s, and it looks like there's going to be a bit of a bigger incident there into the chicane. Meanwhile, oh dear, yep, okay, everything's gone off there. We've got multiple cars off the circuit. Spun is Christian Garreton. Unfortunately, Christian, one of the quicker drivers in the field, having been sent all the way to the back just in time for the GT4s to almost arrive onto the scene. Looks like Mobin Khan has also had a problem there in the middle sector. A lot of chaos in the LMP3s to start things off.
What a start from Aidan Young in the GT4s. Qualified P2. Aaron Myers has been on fire on the 1-lap pace so far this season, but Aidan Young nailing the start and getting himself to the front in the GT4s. How critical could that be as we work our way in towards the opening stages of this race? That was Christian Garreton. Looked like he just spun it on his own, maybe looking up the rear and starting to turn the car, and the car said no, but a weird incident for the 57 car. This was what happened with Mobin Khan through turn 8. 3 wide through there is not going to go. Ooh. And our two-time pole sitter in the LMP3s spinning around in a way that I don't think he would have enjoyed too much.
Yeah, that's unfortunate there. Lap 1, though, is complete for the LMP3s as we see a replay of Roy Brown in the Mercedes GT4 just lost it coming through the right-hander and slipped over the curbs, and so he's been sent all the way to the back as well. Aside from that, we haven't seen many incidents in the GT4 field. It's been a pretty clean start for our second class here today. The top 3 starting to break away. Kurt Ham in the yellow McLaren starting to battle for P3. See the start there. Aiden Young starting in second, but he had the inside line for the first turn and was able to get for the final turn, sorry, was able to get a better run out of it than Aaron Myers. And Aaron was immediately on the attack, but Young going defensive into the first turn was able to just keep the position. Aiden Young and Aaron Myers have been racing each other closely for a long time now, and they have a lot of respect for each other. They'll race each other hard. They won't give an inch, but they'll leave just enough space to keep it clean.
Yeah, Young versus Myers, one of the better, if not one of the best, roads rivalries that we've seen in the PRL in the last few months. So really good to see them still going at it, and there's not much to separate them still, only half a second at the front of the field in the GT4s. We can see them all running their way through the middle sector, and how easy it is for drivers to maybe drift a little bit wider than they want to and pick up an off-track through that middle sector. You can just see everybody running over that curb. They're over the white line, but they're not quite over the curb, so I think they're just about keeping it legal, but you're running a very fine line there, aren't you? With the instant limit not the highest either, we might see some drivers falling a victim to a couple of drive-throughs throughout this race, and that's something we're going to have to look out for. There's no doubt about that. Driver going wide, being pushed wide a little bit in the background as they fight their way through towards the back of the field on the GT4s, but generally pretty clean start in this category.
Yeah, very clean start indeed. And looking at the YouTube chat, yeah, there's a good point being made there. An odd number of LMP3s starting this race. So pole position for GT4 was actually on the outside of the final turn. But Michael Terrafino going for a third spot there and getting it done nicely on Kurt Ham. It's not the most ideal situation for Aaron Myers starting on the outside, but that's the way it is. And unfortunately just had to deal with it. Currently, Aiden Young still in the lead, but Myers is pressuring him, and now Terrafino will try and advance his way forward. This is a great battle here. Kalen Tobin in the Aston Martin right behind the Mercedes and McLaren of Terrafino and Ham, and now they get into the twisties. This is a place where you can potentially set up a move. Tobin trying to look to the inside of Ham here, coming through turn 5, turn 6. This is interesting. You can get up the inside at the chicane, but you've got to make sure that you have the right line and keep it clean, and Tobin gets the move done.
Second part of that chicane is very much a single file part of the racetrack. So if you claim the inside line, the likely chances are you'll be able to claim it through the second part of the chicane as well, and that's exactly what Kalen Tobin was able to do, up into P5. And the number 23 marches on. You're right about Jeff Kaufhold making a good point in the YouTube channel. I will say this week, Jeff Kaufhold, of course, championship leader in the GT3 Fix Series. I know I mentioned William Fenton last week. I'll make sure I get in Jeff's championship leader status. He will be racing tomorrow. Great to see him in the chat. Great to see everybody getting involved in the chat. We always have a great viewership on a Monday night, and we do appreciate you. But already, we're only 5 minutes in, but we're already seeing these great battles develop. At the front in the GT4s, look at that quarter of a second between Young and Myers. Myers may be looking for it towards turn 1, but he may be a little bit too far back, and we'll be able to see it now. You can barely see Aaron Myers as he dips in the slipstream. Bit of fighting, bit of weaving, ducking and diving. Outside line for Aaron Myers, I should say. Aiden Young claiming the inside line. Looked like he was going to have to take the outside, but it means that Aiden Young's going to be able to keep the position, and Aaron Myers trying all the tricks in the book, not coming up for him just yet.
Yeah, indeed. Myers tried moving to the inside. Young covered him. So they'll continue fighting as long as they always have. But I think what you can see here is the advantage in qualifying has been with Myers as, oh dear, Steve Gow tipping around one of the no team cars there, one of the BMWs. I think that might have been maybe Maxime David. Yes, that's such a shame. I think that'll go immediately to the stewards. That was a straight up out-braking themselves maneuver from the Mercedes. So yeah, unfortunate that happened, but it's what you expect coming into turn 1 of a circuit like this. It's the only real passing opportunity around here, and Yeah, you'll have drivers really pushing the limits through that section. Keep an eye on the battle for 9th in LMP3, by the way. Xanadakis in the 717 holding off Lucas Wallace and Lando Tiga. Lando had a bit of a rough race at Road Atlanta last week, and he'll be looking for some redemption here, trying to get into the top 10.
Yeah, and Lando's had a bit of an up and down season, hasn't he? Looking to try and maybe put a little bit of some points on the board and put a little bit of respect on his name as well. Looking to get inside the top 10. We've seen him make some great moves, and he's going to have to make another couple to get himself into the top 9. But he's not far away, is he? So do not rule him out getting a little higher up in the order, especially when we've got 52 minutes. We've got pit stops to worry about. We've got lapping of the GT4s to think about. We're not there just yet, but we're kind of in the stages of the race where each class is kind of setting out their stalls. Drivers are just trying to get ready. That is not the line for Xanadakis, though, through turn 8 and into turn 9. This is going to give a great chance for the guys behind him to make a move. And, of course, that is Lucas Wallace right behind him, tucked up. And I think he might look for it into turn 12. I think he's going to be too far back, actually. But you can just see how much pressure Xanadakis is under. And he's not just got one car behind him. Now he's got 2 to pressure him.
Yeah, the big problem for Wallace, though, is, number one, the circuit's very twisty. It's hard to pass around here in that section. He does get up the inside into the penultimate corner, though. Oh, a little bit of contact on the way into the final turn there. As it looks like Mobin Khan has had yet another issue further behind. Mobin has fallen all the way to the back now, and it doesn't look like he'll be making up any positions. Drescher, meanwhile, trying to hold off Daniel Oliver. Just enough space being given. The point I wanted to make about the middle sector is in cars that produce a bit of downforce, like the LMP3s, you got to deal with aero wash through those fast corners. You follow too closely behind someone through a corner like this, you lose a bit of front grip, and you're not going to be able to get the run out of the corner that you want. That's the reason why you see the moves being made at those heavy braking zone corners, like the first turn and the third last corner. Oh no, Kurt Ham, he was battling for third in GT4 earlier. It looks like he's lost it out of the chicane there, and one of the Porsches has gone as well.
I think that's Jeremy Manella, the number 26 car. Yes, it is indeed, who has come to blows there with Kurt Ham. That is not what they will want to see, but luckily they've kept out of the way and it hasn't caused a large incident, which we have seen in the past in some smaller series down at turn number 7. Lucas Wallace, though, look at this. Look at how much speed he can carry through this middle sector compared to Xanadakis, and Xanadakis looks so vulnerable at this part of the racetrack. Looks a little bit better down the straights, final sector and opening sector. He looks okay, but middle sector, he looks so vulnerable. And now you've not just got Tager latching to the back of this, you've got Fernando Rodriguez, and now you've got 3 cars piling onto Nico Xanadakis, and you wonder when the pressure is going to break, because Xanadakis can't hold this forever. No. And you have to say, that felt like it was coming, didn't it?
Yeah, that's where the pressure breaks for Nikos Xanadakis. I don't know if there was contact involved there. It didn't look like it initially, but the LMP3s can be very easy to spin up. And oh yeah, actually, it looks like there was a bit of contact there. Xanadakis, with a poor run out of the corner, just got tapped by Lucas Wallace. That's a real shame. But Wallace, I think, was getting a bit frustrated behind Xanadakis there. You're right. He was clearly faster through the middle sector, but he couldn't take advantage because it's one line fits all through this part of the circuit.
Realistically, when you get to turn 4, the next opportunity you have, the only opportunity you have before you get to turn 1 again, is turn 12. So we've seen drivers look for it there and not really be able to go for it, but turn 13 is never going to work in these LMP3s. They're far too bulky for that to happen, and a little bit of a love tap spinning around Xanadakis. I don't think Xanadakis will see it like that. I think he'll be a little bit annoyed with how that has unfolded, but he'll try and rebuild his race, and he's not that far back. He's still ahead of the likes of Chris Massey. And only dropped about 10 seconds or so to the guys he was battling with. So it could be worse, and lots of time to fight it back. This is Romain Faux coming through the final corner now, the number 31 driver, looking relatively calm and playing a big Tash game, I think it's fair to say. Can he defend, though, down towards turn 1? Let's see, because he's losing a little bit of straight line speed. He should be able to have it to the inside, and he will remain in P7, although that's a big send round the outside. And actually, Reese, it looks like Tristan Cadet is looking for it, and he's really going for it now.
Yeah, well, Gabriel Gignac there in the Porsche Cayman is going to try and get it done around the outside of turn 3, which you can do at this circuit. You can get a bit of a better exit here and stick it up the inside into 4, and the BMW has to give way to the Porsche there, so Gabriel Gignac will be up to 8th in his class. I think ending up having to gain a couple of positions back that he lost in the opening laps. Some good pressure being absorbed here by Romain Faux, who I believe it might be his first start in this series. If you're interested in what's been going on at the back of the LMP3 field, Chase Wilson and the number 5 did not take to the start, so he's that's one free overall position for all the GT4s. But now we're starting to see the LMP3s come round to lap them, and this is where you're going to see lines really start to get compromised.
Michael Diaz working his way through these guys fighting over P7, which means Boris and Lavando is a little bit further up. Watch out for Daniel Zegers. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? I was fully expecting him to be down the inside there. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just had a camera shot. There he is. You could just about see him to the inside. I was waiting for him. I knew he was going to appear. And Zegers working his way through and pushing offline, actually, a couple of these guys into the final couple of corners. And that could be really quite critical. But Faux looks like he's been able to deal with it. And they will make their way into the final corner. All happy and on the right line. Not on the right line, though. Further back is, I believe that is Lambert Jesse, who's been forced to go wide at the final corner, and that's because we've got Zach Hebert and Jason Drescher, and they're fighting over P4 into turn 1 in the class.
They are indeed. Hebert defensive versus Drescher ahead of that GT4 battle, and Hebert will keep the position for the time being. Hebert and Drescher are the only real battle in LMP3 right now, aside from Lakota and Starker for 7th place. Most of the other cars are more than a second apart on my timing screen, so they're not showing up as quote-unquote together on track. There's a lot more battling going on in GT4, that battle we were looking at just before. Oh, looks like there's been a problem for Eric Fenson in the LMP3. The number 77 is out, and it looks like some big damage for him. He was racing a bit further down the back. It looks like there was contact between Fenson and Chris Massey towards the end of Sector 2. And unfortunately, Fenson's brought it into the pits, and it looks like he won't be coming out.
Yeah, well, Eric Fenson, he's had a nightmare start to the season, I think it's fair to say. Did not start the opening round, did not finish round 2, did not finish round 3, and seemingly not finish round number 4 as well. So he's been struggling in the early stages. We hope that he can get it, have a good race back in Magny Core in a week's time, but not the start to the season that Eric Fenson will have wanted. Jason Drescher, though, he will have wanted to get past Zach Hebert, not happy with where he is. That's Chris Massey getting a bit collected. I don't think there was anything that could be done there by the car coming through, and that is Eric Fenson, and yeah.
Straight up.
That's the kind of instant. Exactly. That's the kind of instant where you arrive on the scene and there's just nothing you can do, is there?
No, certainly not. You know, someone loses it in front of you, you don't really have much time to react. Your only option is to go straight off the track or, you know, risk crashing yourself. Fenson did the right thing there by getting on the brakes, but unfortunately not much more he could do there. So damage for Eric, and he's been in the pits now for 1.5 minutes. Looks like he's going to continue there. Looks like Tristan Cadet in the 254 in the GT4 has jumped into the pits himself. I think we're seeing the first real casualties of the lapping. You know, I think this is far from over. We're going to be seeing a lot more. Probably not quite as crazy as Road Atlanta, but still plenty of action to come here as the LMP3s lap the GT4s.
Alessandro Lavando has done a very good job of it so far. This is where it's going to get a little bit tetchy. They're into 6 and 7. We're going to see them all pile their way through. Lucas Wallace, Ian Starker, the front two involved in this, but that means just in behind them as well, we've got Fernando Rodriguez, Lando Tega trying to battle their way through, but it is getting a little bit tight and tetchy down in the middle sector, and it's exactly what we were talking about. Thankfully, no big collisions this time around, but you can really see why we're worried about something happening in that part of the racetrack. The speed difference is immense, and the commitment for some of these LMP3s is quite high as well, especially if they're trying to follow another couple of cars through.
Yeah, indeed. The GT4 lead gap has increased. It looks like Zach Hebert and Jason Drescher were battling hard, and into the chicane ended up forcing Aaron Myers wide earlier on in the lap. And so now Aiden Young is enjoying a 1.4 second lead in the GT4 class as we continue looking at this section here. Chris Massey, oh yeah, that's what happened to him. I think was that the same incident with Fenton? I'm not too sure, but yeah, it might be another one. Seems like I mean, that's a corner where you need a lot of front grip. Obviously it's a fast corner, but sometimes the rear end can be overwhelmed there.
Yeah, I think that was down at turn number 9, I believe, if I know my Hungaroring backwards, which I like to think I do. I've seen a lot of it when I've raced around here, mainly because I've spun myself. But yeah, it hasn't been a good day. Either way, it's completely fair to say for Chris Massey, already a minute off of the field, and we're not even a third of the way through the race yet. But Mikey Smith looking to make a move on Jeremy Manella, not a name we've talked about much this season. I think this might be his first race of the season, actually.
Yeah, I believe Manella has been here throughout. I remember seeing him in Indianapolis and at Atlanta Smith as well. Oh, sorry, Mikey Smith, yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Mikey will be able to do in that McLaren. He's making up a bit of time on Manella here, and you've got to be very careful on the exit of that corner. As long as you keep 2 tires on the curb, you're fine, but you run too far into the runoff area and you'll get that off track. And looks like Mikey Smith here is being a little more conservative on the exit there. Nice to see. It's not going to gain him much time in the short term, but he'll be able to keep himself well out of the bounds of getting a drive-through penalty. In the Precision Racing League Road Series, there's an incident limit of 15. You're allowed to get 15 incidents before you end up having to go to the pits, and then it's another drive-through penalty every 5 incidents thereafter. Gabriel Gignac, meanwhile, trying to have a go at 7th in GT4, almost bumping Romain Faux, coming into the braking zone there as, oh dear, Lambert Jesse completely missing his braking point into turn 1. That was almost a disaster.
Yeah, good to get out of it, actually. Lambert Jesse looked like he was about to run into the back and maybe cause a 3-car pile-up there with Gignac and Faux up in front, but they'll make their way through turn 2 and into turn 3. But Romain Faux, he doesn't look like he's the quickest through the corners. Gabriel Gignac looks like he's got a lot more apex speed at the moment than Romain, but Romain doing a very good job to be able to hold up his competitors and stay exactly where he is in that black number 31 machine, and doing a very good defensive job. Not really looking like he's too pressuring the cars in front too much, but sometimes at a track like this, defense can be 95% of the battle.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd even say it's 99% of the battle, because if you can keep them behind you in the parts of the circuit where you can actually pass, you'll be able to remain quick through the middle sector. There isn't much of a chassis advantage or disadvantage between these 2 cars. They're both mid-engine rear-wheel drive, the McLaren and the Porsche, but you can see that the Porsche is a little bit smaller, a little bit more nimble. It darts between the corners. Remember, we've had a Porsche Cayman start on pole position all 3 rounds so far this season. So it's definitely the car to have if you want to be quick around a single lap. Little bit wide on the entry to the final corner for the McLaren though, but he hooks it up with the late apex and a straight exit onto the start-finish stretch. Things have really spaced out here. We're basically looking at the battle for 7th in GT4, the battle for 5th up ahead between Terrafino and Benson. Young and Myers are still together for the lead within a couple of seconds of each other, but Wyckoff and Tobin, they seem to just have that there's not much they can do to catch up right now, as there's further fighting between Hebert and Drescher. These 2, you haven't been able to separate them the whole race.
No, they've been attached at the hip, haven't they, really? Hebert being able to defend from Drescher for the time being, but not able to get after Daniel Ziegers yet. Zach Hebert, there he is, in his VR headset, getting around the final turn. We're getting towards halfway already in this race, albeit we're only just over a third, but pit stops are going to have to be consideration in the next 10-15 minutes at least, so we'll have to see if anybody decides to go with an early pit stop. We might see some drivers go a little bit longer. But if you're, Zach Hebert, Jason Drescher, if you're Jason Drescher, you'd likely want to try, what would you try here, Reese? Would you try an overcut or an undercut? Because an undercut could put you into traffic, but so could an overcut realistically. I mean, where would you go? Or would it not matter in your head?
I think it's your choices are a rock or a hard place, really. It doesn't matter when you decide to come into the pits, you're going to be held up somehow in traffic. So I think it just comes down to the luck of the draw and also your skill at navigating the traffic. If you're able to get past them cleanly and efficiently, then you will have a big advantage. But when you're this close on track, I don't know. It's difficult. In leagues like this, you don't have the army of spotters and engineers that the pro sim racing series at the very top of the ladder have. So it's difficult for you to tell where exactly you're going to come out relative to the GT4 traffic. I think these guys have just come in with an idea of what they're going to do, and they'll try and execute it to the best of their ability. I think if I was in Drescher's position, I would pit when Hebert does, because you never know. Following him this closely, probably using a little bit less fuel over the course of a lap, so may be able to shorten his pit stop a little bit, Will Drescher, and that might be the factor that gets him the position in the end. They're going to have to keep an eye out for Daniel Oliver, though. He's starting to catch up to them. They both ran about half a second faster on the last lap, but Oliver is definitely there and will be ready to pounce if there's a problem between these two.
And we've seen time and time again this season, haven't we, where there has been a little bit of time gained or lost on pit road. So following a driver in could actually maybe put your competitor off just a touch. They might miss their marks a little bit, and that could cost them enough time for you to gain the position. So there's all those little, the nitty-bitty bit, the little bits of a pit stop that could be so vital over the course of a race. But Jason Drescher, he looks like he wants to get it done on circuit. He is really pushing Zach Hebert now as they make their way in towards 6 and 7. Zach Hebert, of course, comes into this race P3 in the championship, and with Mobin Khan out, he's currently sitting in what will be P2 in the championship without really having to do too much. Michael Diaz comes into this race P5 but not close enough to Hebert, and Daniel Ziegers comes into this race a lot further down, P12 in the championship after not starting round number 2. But this is where the action's going on here. Race final corner, 2 LMP3s, 2 GT4s, and they will make their way out of the corner, but I think we might see a bit of a race with the GT4s off of the corner.
Yeah, Jeremy Manella just came into the pits alongside them. Now Smith and Ham are together in the 2 McLarens as they continue pushing here. The 2 cars through turn 1. Daniel Ziegers is a long way behind these two, Diaz and Ovando, who incidentally are driving 2 different colored cars this time around, which will help to differentiate them. Ovando and Diaz, they're very close on pace, and there's been multiple seasons of PRL racing where I've seen these two battle hard as if they're on 2 different teams. There's definitely no team orders at Selpec Precision Racing, but every time they do come together, they have a good chat about it, and they just work themselves out from there. I think that's the optimal situation when you have 2 teammates who are just as quick as each other at the front of a field.
Yeah, and it's good to see that there's a little bit of cohesion there as well. As, oh my word, that was Boris Sanchez-Lavando nearly spinning it out. There's Michael Diaz nearly going into the back of him, and Boris Sanchez-Lavando nearly getting spun around at turn number 11. So many nearlies, but they have very much got through the rest of the GT, or that little clump of the GT3s, headed, I do believe, by Romain Faux. So they've got a little bit of time before they get up to Bat Benson and Michael Terrafino, but then there's a bigger gap for when they get up to Kalen Tobin and Matthew Wyckoff. So those two look like they're getting through nicely, but you think, oh, this is Zach Hebert going around. Oh, and that's on the racing line. That is not a good place to be in. Smartly getting off the racing line as quick as he could. But that was not the place to be. You can see that's why he dropped down to P6. But I was just going to say, Boris and Lavando having Michael Diaz behind. If Diaz works with Lavando and maybe tries to play the team game for Boris's championship, this could be great for the 222.
Well, yeah, certainly is. Shame for Hebert as well. I mean, he was fortunate in that there weren't any cars around him when he spun, but yeah, it's not ideal to lose the rear end in a quick corner like that. The fight continuing here between Romain Faux and Gabriel Gignac. Lambert Jesse still right behind them. It looks like Hebert has responded to that spin by going for his pit stop. Every driver is going to have to come to the pits at least once here tonight. So it's around about the middle point of the race where you start seeing it, and that's exactly what we've seen from Hebert with a 15.7 second stop. That's a little bit longer than I think we've seen LMP3 pit stops take in previous rounds of the series, but still a benchmark we can measure everyone else against.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a few drivers in this series that set benchmarks that you think, well, how is anybody going to be able to meet it? I mean, the likes of Aiden Young, Aaron Myers, Matthew Rykov is trying. He's been clearly, and I mean this with great respect, clearly third best. And I mean that with respect because when you're competing with Aiden Young and Aaron Myers, third best is best at the rest. So Matthew Rykov is doing a stellar job at the moment, particularly in the team's championship with himself and Aaron Myers fighting at the front. Oh, that's getting a bit close out of the final corner, but it's allowing Michael Diaz to get through on one of the GT4s. I do believe that is Caelan Tobin. It is, as they run down towards turn number 1, flashing the lights from one of the LMP3s a lap down. And I do believe that is Chris Massey just there.
Yes, Massey falling a lap down on his class leaders thanks to the couple of spins that he suffered. Next up, they've got Wyckoff, who's running a strong third in GT4, but almost getting rear-ended coming out of turn 4. It's a very scary spot to have faster cars come up on you, but for the time being, he's looking all right. More pit stops in the LMP3s. Daniel Oliver, Stephen Lakota, and Lucas Wallace making their way in. Christian Garreton also jumping into the lane too. If you're in the LMP3 midfield, now is the time to pit. They've all seen Zach Hebert go for it and thought, okay, now's about the time. Let's see who wins the race out of pit road. Currently, quickest stop of them all being Lucas Wallace, 12.9 seconds. He will still come out behind Stephen Lakota, but he's made up a little bit of time.
And we'll have to see if that can kind of roll into anything else. Maybe he can get a little bit more time, get a couple of spots, and maybe recover his race a touch after a couple of difficult moments, it's fair to say, in the opening half of the race. I say half of the race because we're about to reach half distance in this one. We'll come around the final corner, 30 minutes gone, 30 minutes to go, almost exactly, which suggests to me that we're going to have exactly this many laps again in the race, because of course pit stops will mean that they set the drivers back about 40 seconds. So I think we're going to see another, what is that, 18 laps in this race. Indeed, our timing tower has changed from 37 lap race to a 36, so I think we're going to see another 18, and it means that Boris Lavando has now completed over half of the race. He's going to have led more than half of the race because he's led from the start to now. Can he lead to the end though? Because that's going to be the important question as we see Young and Myers fighting through turn 1 after the leaders in the LMP3s overtake the leaders in the GT4s.
Yep, the leaders pass the leaders at the halfway mark of the race, and well, it took a bit longer for them to do that, I think, for the second time than I expected. Round about 8 or 9 laps or thereabouts. I think it took the LMP3s to come around for the first time on the GT4s, but this lead is incredibly close, isn't it? Myers having a great run after that first run through of the traffic, and he's caught right back up to Aiden Young. The pressure is on. You know, the thing that I've noticed is last season when Aiden Young was as dominant as he was leaving Myers behind. But something's gone right this season for Aaron Myers, and he's been able to get much closer to Aiden Young on track than I've seen him in the past. They've usually been close together at the starts, but then dropping off a little bit, and now it is truly on. I think we're going to be on for a classic season of PRL LMP3 GT4 if the battles like this keep going for our GT4 lead. Myers will try to straighten up the exit of the final corner as best he can. Young loses a little bit of traction over the curbs there, and Myers has always been close down the start-finish straight. He's always been getting the slipstream, but Young has been going defensive almost every time here. Let's see if he can hold on to this. The inside line for the hairpin, slight bit of oversteer for the Mercedes, and the Porsche going across the curb. This is such an entertaining battle, scintillating all the way to the end. Remember, these guys still have to take their pit stops. Basically, the top 11 of our GT4s haven't taken a stop yet. And just as I say that, in comes Terrafino from 6th.
Yeah, Terrafino will be one of the front runners to pit, and we are past half distance. So you think it should be easy for everybody else to get to the end as we see the leaders go through once again. Just to put into perspective of how dominant these two have been over the past season and a bit, it took Aiden Young disconnecting off the start and having to start at the back at Suzuka to get him out of the top 5 for the first time in in months. He wasn't outside of the top 5 in the previous season. In fact, I don't believe he was outside the top 3 last season, and Aaron Myers was only outside of the top 4 once. So they have just been so dominant and so consistent for the last however many months, 4 or 5 months it feels like at least, if not more than that, that they have just become great rivals. They know each other inside and out. They kind of know what each other's going to do in attack, in defense, and it means that it's led to this great battle between them, not just in this race, but we've seen it throughout the season so far, and hopefully it will carry on to the end of the year, because these two really put on a show. And we come into these races not really knowing who's going to win. We think it's going to be Aiden Young and Aaron Myers, but I mean, you could toss a coin and you'd be confident with your pick at the start of the day.
Yeah, you certainly would. And there's always the possibility that they'll end up running into their own issues, and someone like Wyckoff, Tobin, or Terrafino will be in contention for victory. This time, Myers not quite close enough to send a move on Aiden Young, and Young will not go defensive. But it's difficult for me to pick exactly where either of these guys is quicker than the other. They're so equal on pace right now. I think Myers obviously staying in the slipstream down the start-finish straight, that's helping him out a lot. And, you know, Young in the Mercedes, it feels like that car lumbers around the circuit a bit more compared to the Porsche. So Myers a little bit closer coming into the twisty middle sector of this circuit.
Yeah, it's a difficult area of the track to make any kind of move. Aaron Myers looking for it, but he's not really going to find it unless Aiden Young makes a big mistake, but I think he'll be hard-pressed to find one of those coming out of the 427, but they'll carry on making their way through. I mean, you can look at the gap back to Matthew Wyckoff. I mean, these two haven't exactly been pushing hard all the way without, you know, some defensive lines, without a little bit of battling. And they're still 12.5 seconds in front of their closest competitor. It is absolutely crazy just how much pace these two have. But, I mean, if you combine the leads in LMP3 and GT4, it's less than half a second at the moment. I mean, it's crazy close, but this is exactly what we want to see, isn't it? Tight battling in a multi-class race.
Yeah, indeed. This is a matchup for the ages when it comes to sim racing leagues. Aiden Young versus Aaron Myers. I think I'm going to be remembering this for a very long time. Oh, we're still waiting for pit stops from the top 8 in our GT4 class, and if you're a leader, I think you want to try and run as long as you can, as Myers has a little look up the inside just in time for Fernando Rodriguez to arrive on the scene. Myers' line out of turn 1 is compromised there. He's going to lose out a bit to Young, and Rodriguez will move past without much issue on our GT4 leader. So now Myers has to get back on the wagon, so to speak, as the battle for the lead in LMP3 is still on. Ovando and Diaz also deciding to go as long as they like. The top 6 in the LMP3s, it seems, have not taken to the lane yet. I'm seeing a problem for Lando Tiga as well. I think he's had his connection dropped from the server, unfortunately, so the number 6 is going to have to work his way through at least a lap down on these guys. And I think I'm getting the same sort of vibes between Ovando and Diaz as I'm getting from Young and Myers. You know, two very competitive guys who are pushing each other all the way to the end.
Yeah, but it's going to become interesting between these two, just to see if, you know, even if Michael Diaz has a little bit more pace, does he just help out Boris Angel Ovando? For the team, this is absolutely stellar. But for the Drivers' Championship, Boris is in a better position, albeit we are still in the early stages. I mean, after 3 rounds, you know, the gap between them is 34 points. It doesn't sound like a lot, but, you know, one race can really affect you. So Boris will argue that he needs all the points he can get. Here comes Diaz around the outside. Diaz is going to go for it, you know. He's going for the lead around the outside at turn 5. It's an absolutely awful place to be stuck for Boris Angel Ovando, and he's lost the lead. Just as I was saying, they might work together and help Boris Angel Ovando out for the win. Michael Diaz takes advantage of a poor line from Boris on a GT4, and he takes the lead with about 22 minutes to go.
Yeah, Michael Terrafino, of course, had the right to hold his line through the corners there, and crucially for Diaz, he was able to get through the bit of clear air there, and Ovando had to stay behind Terrafino. Well, now it's all up to how the pit stop cycle works out, and how hungry is Ovando here. He's got a good championship lead, has Ovando. Diaz hasn't been here for every single round so far. Diaz currently 5th in the championship, Ovando in the championship lead. So I think Boris might back off a little bit. You know, it's not the end of the world if he finishes behind Diaz, but he'll still do everything in his power to try and get back by.
Yeah, and I'm sure Boris, looking for 3 in 3, it's going to have a bit of a fire in his belly to try and get that and extend that championship lead, particularly over Mobin Khan, particularly over Zach Hebert, 2 drivers who are not having their best days. I mean, Christian Garreton's 4th in the championship. You won't see him in the top 6 or in the top 10 even for Christian Garreton. He's down in 11th right now, so this is looking like it's a great day for Boris Angel Ovando. If Michael Diaz can continue this form, race 2nd in the championship, but he's going to be very, very close to it on the back of Zach Hebert, who I believe should be B2 coming out of this, unless he has even more issues. But for Boris Angel Ovando, this is golden for him to try and gain maybe 20, 30 points away, and that's in the PRL. That is a massive gap, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is. There's not much of a gap of points between positions in PRL Road Series, so consistency is key. Constantly finishing up the front is paramount if you want to win a championship in this league. We've seen also pit stops from the majority now of our LMP3 runners. It looks like Zach Hebert, unfortunately, having to visit the pits a 2nd time, and it looks like that was for a drive-through penalty. Zach, of course, we saw having a little bit of a spin earlier. I think he's exceeded the incident limit, and so Hebert's come out between Rodriguez and Garreton there. These 3 have just, well, actually, the one up front has just come into the pits. Ian Starker, Lakota, and Wallace. They pitted about 6 laps ago, the teammates, and now they'll be trying to look at a position in the top 6 here, as the fastest car on track this lap has been Daniel Zegers, a 139.5. Some crucial clear air there for the number 8 as he tries to chase down Diaz and Ovando, but it's a long way to make up.
Yeah, of course, Boris getting a little bit held up, wasn't he, on that lap? Was that anything to do with it? Or maybe just a little bit of a lack of pace from the 2-2-2, even though I feel like that's it could be blasphemy for a driver who's leading the championship. Of course, he's got the pace underneath him. This is getting difficult for the 2-1-7, down in towards turn number 12, ducking and diving, finding the line, and getting past our GT4 leader, Aiden Young, in towards turn number 13. Turn 14 should be much easier, but for Aiden Young, still got drivers coming around him into the final corner. Can't be comfortable for him, but he's still got a lead to Aaron Myers, and won't be worrying about his runoff of the corner here as they get towards turn 1 once again. still waiting for the pit stops, putting the pit stops on the long finger. I mean, we're running out of time. We're 2/3 of the way through this race now, Reece. I mean, time is ticking away for them to make these pit stops, suggesting that they're more likely to pit on the same lap.
Yeah, typically we've seen the GT4s run a little bit longer than the LMP3s, but I'm not too sure what the deal's going to be for our top 3 in the LMP3 class. Actually, there we go, there's a development. Diaz coming into the lane from the lead. Ovando will continue on for an extra lap. So the Solpic Precision Racing cars are splitting the strategy.
And how important could this be? Boris Sanchez-Lavando going longer, but look at the clean air he's got in the 222. He's seen that there's space for him to drive into, and he's thought, well, I risk going into traffic. I can use this lap to try and put in a good in lap. I don't know where Michael's going to come out in the traffic. This could work out well for our championship leader. Where does Michael Diaz come out? Is there anybody around him? From that shot, it doesn't necessarily look like it, but we'd have to see the run down towards turn 2. It looks pretty clear for Michael Diaz, doesn't it? So he may have been able to get away with a strategy, one GT4 in the way. But, I mean, this could be close. There is a GT4 in the way, though, for Boris Lavando, and he'll meet that in the middle sector, not where he needs to find one.
Yeah, Kalen Tobin there. Novando will crucially make his way past around the outside of the corner. So he's dispatched Tobin very nicely. Hasn't lost anywhere near as much time as I feared for Boris. And Diaz getting up the inside of, I believe that was Kurt Ham there in the McLaren. Kurt Ham still running pretty strongly in 6th place in the GT4 class, and one of the last to come into the pits. Here's a development for the GT4 lead. Aiden Young has come into the lane. Aaron Myers is going to continue on an extra lap. So now things are starting to get interesting. Boris Ovando is going to stay out yet another lap. He's going to try and run this one as long as he can.
But again, he's got a lot of clean air to run into here. So is this going to be a good call for Amanda? We will wait and see. Similarly, Aaron Myers looks like he has got a lot of room to run into as well. But this is going to be really interesting now to see how the two battles for the lead ebb and flow with the difference on pit road. We've got Ovando versus Diaz. We've got Myers versus Young. And they're both on different strategies for the moment. We've only got 60 minutes to find out who's going to come out where. But you'd think that the likes of Ovando and Myers are going to come in soon. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to come out in front of their rivals? We'll have to also get a bit of a gauge on the time difference between Ovando and Diaz. Of course, 28.5 seconds between them. Can Diaz gain, or can Ovando try and stretch that gap out just a little bit?
Yeah, that is the question, and also whether or not Myers will be able to get the pass done in the pits versus Aiden Young for GT4. Okay. All right, we'll keep an eye here on Myers on the bottom of your screen. Watch for him to potentially peel off to driver's right coming out of the second last corner. He's seen that Young has come in and probably seen that he hasn't had much to deal with in terms of LMP3 traffic trying to get around him. And will he go in? He certainly will. Okay, this is the matchup. So the crucial number here for Aiden Young, 17.6 seconds. That's how long Aiden Young's pit stop took. Myers was aggressive behind him. I don't expect he would have been saving fuel all that much. We'll have to wait and see if this is a quicker stop for him.
And we've got Boris Sanchez-Lavando in the pit lane as well. So we're going to get an answer to both of our questions in who is going to come out in front in the LMP3, who is going to come out in front in the GT4. Here comes Aiden Young rounding the final corner. He's got an LMP3 coming around the outside of him. That is not going to help.
That's a quick stop for Myers.
Comes into the pit lane. That's very quick. It's massively quick. This could be a lead for Aiden Young here. Sorry, for Aaron Myers here, if he can hold on to this. Coming out right behind Boris Sanchez-Lavando, who is going to be side by side with Michael Diaz. And we are going to see them, both of the leading battles happen in front of our eyes, right next to each other at turn number 1. Ovando leads from Diaz, Myers leads from Young. Going longer has worked out for both of them, and all of a sudden the race has changed its complexion completely.
Yeah, look at how much time there is between Myers and Young now. They're barely even in the same corner right now. That was a big difference. 15.3 second stop for Aaron Myers. Aiden Young was 3 seconds slower through the entire lane, entry to exit. 36 seconds versus 33 for Myers. So Aaron has absolutely nailed the pit cycle here. Let's see if he can hold on to it. A little bit of LMP3 drama might change the face of that lead again.
This is really interesting to see develop in front of our eyes. Aaron Myers maybe out-strategizing Aiden Young, maybe able to go a little bit longer on the fuel. He was sat behind Aiden Young for so much longer. Was he able to save that little bit more fuel in the slipstream of the 427? And it meant that he didn't have to put as much in when he came in for a pit stop a couple of laps after Aiden Young. Crucial moments in the championship, which could swing on moments like this. It's only going to come down to a handful of points, we think, and that moment could be critical for the championship when we get to the season finale in only 5 weeks' time. Boris Lavando, though, getting back ahead of Michael Diaz. Diaz isn't going to be too pleased about that, especially considering that Lavando led for quite a lot of the race, and so Diaz had that opportunity to try and fuel save, but didn't really, or wasn't able to do it, while he was sitting in P2, and Lavando now leads the race. And LMP3 jumping out of the way, I should say. This race, it's sprung into life, hasn't it? 13 minutes to go, and we've got 2 fist fights for the leads that we're going to be watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh boy, this is going to be very interesting. So once again, Diaz behind Ovando. He was able to make the pass on Ovando in the first place thanks to GT4 traffic. He'll be hoping for a similar set of circumstances further down the line. With 12 minutes remaining, everyone has visited the pit lane for a scheduled stop. And there's also been a couple of drivers that have unfortunately had to visit the pits for a penalty. I mentioned Zach Hebert earlier, had to take a drive through. It looks like Lucas Wallace has done the same thing a lap ago, also exceeding the incident limit. I wonder how close any of these guys are on the incident limit. Ovando and Diaz, I think, have kept it very clean over the course of this race. They've been scything their way through the GT4s, and they haven't been clumsy. They've been nice and clean.
You have seen a couple of wide moments, though, particularly from Boris Lavando, going a little bit wide at turn 4, I remember very vividly, and I think we saw him go wide at turn number 11 as well. So there's been a couple of moments that we have seen, but not nearly enough that you think that they're going to meet the instant limit. But you saw there through the final corner, getting dangerously close to extending the track by just a smidgen, but that would be enough to get them to be flagged up by the warning system, so they've got to be careful. And with 11 minutes on the clock, they cannot afford any kind of slip up, especially with the gap they have back to Daniel Zegers. They shouldn't be worried at all about the P3 man. Just bring it to the end, and they will be able to call themselves, our race winners as a team. P1 and P2 would be a great result. But for Boris Lavando, I know I've talked about it already, but 3 from 3 is exactly what he wants and what he's going for. And what could that do for his championship? To go 3 from 3 at the start of a season, to have a margin of a good 30 points to the likes of Zach Hebert and Christian Garrett-On. I mean, surely that's going to be a big confidence boost going into a track, Magny-Cours, where I think a lot of drivers aren't going to have too much experience at, particularly in this kind of series.
Yeah, indeed. Magny-Cours isn't the most widely used of tracks in iRacing, and I think that's a real shame. It's one of my favorite racetracks, but it should certainly be interesting with that very fast opening sequence of corners. I think there's going to be quite a few traffic dramas in the first sector there, but keep our eyes on the lead for LMP3 here in Hungary. Diaz closing up a little bit on Ovando as they had to work their way through some GT4s, and Ovando a little compromised on the exit of the corner here. The question is, can Diaz push the rear tires a little more? This is such a difficult track. It's so twisty. It almost drives like a street circuit in places. In Formula 1, they use the Monaco downforce levels at this circuit. It is that tight and twisty. Does Diaz have anything in the slipstream for Boris Ovando? Catches up a little bit in a straight line, but is not able to get ahead on the way into turn 1. But these guys, I think, it's just cooking in the background, They've put it on the back of the stove. It's simmering. Maybe they'll bring it to the front burner and it'll start boiling in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, hopefully so. But Michael Diaz equally may be waiting for the last couple of laps to spring a surprise on Boris Lavando. may just be sitting where he is for the team. We don't really know. We'll be able to hopefully speak to them after the race, kind of get an insight into what was going on in the communications between them during the race, but we will hopefully find out later. Boris and Lavando nearly making the same mistake twice at turn 5 and getting caught up behind a GT4, allowing his rival Michael Diaz to find a way through, but gets through in the lead this time round. And as the time ticks away, we've got 8 minutes 40. Our timing tower thinks we're going to have 6 laps at the end of this one. It's going to be tight whether we do or not. Oh my word, that got close between Diaz and was that Foe, I think, in the background. I believe it was, but it's not comfortable. It's not as easy sailing as these guys would want, is it, at the moment?
No, certainly not. And, you know, if you want an update on the GT4 lead, Aaron Myers, unfortunately, got screwed over a little bit by LMP3 traffic. Massey passed him up the inside into turn 12, and then Daniel Oliver up the inside into turn 13. Myers had to go wide, and that has brought the gap all the way down between Myers and Young. There's only 7 tenths in it between them. Well, there's a bit less than that in it for the LMP3 lead. Ovando a little bit wide in the opening corner, and Diaz is going to try and sneak his way around the outside of turn 3 here. They're side by side for the lead at Solpec Precision Racing. Is Diaz late enough on the brakes? Can he carry the momentum through the corner? He'll get the inside for turn 4 here, and the lead is back in the number 17's hands, but for how long?
Yeah, what a move it was for Michael Diaz to walk it around the outside at turn 2 and claim the inside at turn 3. He's going to scare Boris off making a move at turn 4, although Ovando looks for the inside line at turn 5. Not going to find it there, but Michael Diaz, what commitment. What a move it was from him to retake the lead here in Hungary. Second time he's been able to do it. First time he's done it completely on the pure pace. Had a little bit of help with the GT4 traffic last time, but was able to find his way around the outside, and a definite contender for move of the day, that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of move that I was expecting from this series, you know. You're able to carry a little more speed around the outside, a bit more downforce, gives you the inside for turn 4. Meanwhile, Gabriel Gignac and Matt Benson here fighting over 6th place in the GT4 class, and Gignac getting the move done at the second last corner, just in time for our overall leaders to arrive on the scene with 6.5 minutes left on the clock. Now, Boris Ovando has to try and find a way back past Diaz. He's not going to get any help from Gignac and Benson here. It's the start-finish straight. There's nothing else you can do. Just get in the slipstream again as quickly as you can. Try and keep the gap down.
Yeah, and I actually think it's going to be a little bit touch and go whether we get 4 more laps or 5 here. I think it's only going to be 4 if my maths is correct, although actually thinking about it, it might not be. So don't trust me on that one. We'll find out. I'll be able to do it in a few minutes' time when the maths is a little bit easier. But it's not going to be any easier for Orlando if he's got 1 less lap to try and complete or retake the lead once again. Looking for it, though, not letting Michael Diaz get away by any stretch of the imagination. You could throw a blanket over those two. And yeah, they are so close together. Less than the car length through some of these corners between our leaders in the LMP3s. Less than a second between our leaders in the GT4s. And this is the kind of race that we love in this series. It's the kind of race where we're getting the battles for the lead. We're getting the battles further back as well. Some, you know, maybe some not the best races from some of the championship contenders, you know, the likes of Mobin Khan and Zach Hebert in the LMP3s, and a few other drivers getting involved, the likes of Zegers, Drescher, Daniel Oliver in the top 5. This really has been one of the best races this season, if not the best so far.
Yeah, indeed. You know, after Road Atlanta, I was fearful that this would be absolute carnage. I thought that it would be a graveyard of GT4s and LMP3s, but I've been pleasantly surprised by how clean the action has been around here at the Hungaroring. It's awesome to see. There's been respect given for the most part, and there haven't been any big interclass incidents from what I've seen anyway, apart from a couple of things early on in the race. So with 4 minutes left, still plenty of time for something to happen. Ovando gaining a little bit on Diaz on the last lap. There was only 100th of a second or so, but you can tell that Boris is piling the pressure on Michael.
Yeah, and they'll continue on diving their way down the hill at 2 and into 3, but nothing happening there for Boris Lavando, who is still sitting in the wheel tracks for the time being. P2 he got in Indianapolis in the season opener. P1 in the last 2 weeks, so it's looking like at the moment it's going to be another P2, which would not be a bad feat, would still be another haul of points over 50, but not what he would want, especially with it being so close, especially with it being a teammate. He's going to want this so bad. And it feels like it's going to be a matter of where is he going to throw a move rather than when. We know it's coming. Surely it's coming. But we just have to try and work out where he's going to go for it. Turn 1, turn 2, turn 12 are the obvious options. Is he going to go for one of those, or maybe just try and surprise Michael Diaz with a bit of a shock move, maybe at turn 6 and 7?
Yeah, it all depends on the ebb and flow of the traffic, right? Remember, Diaz initially got the lead due to a coming together with a GT4, Ovando having to back out and the door just wasn't open. I think Boris will be hoping that the shoe was on the other foot this time in the last few minutes of the race, and he'll be able to get past Diaz in the same fashion. They're just coming up here on, I believe that's Matthew Wyckoff there, third in GT4. Very strong drive from Matthew here. He hasn't been involved in too many battles, but he's just minded his own business. He's continued to just strut away at a very competitive pace. All on his own, no pressure from behind, and thus far, 2 chasing the Delta cars on the podium. That'll work out well for them in the Teams Championship.
Bad news for Daniel Z, because he's in pit road. Is that a drive-through? Is it? He's shorted on the fuel. I think it looks like a drive-through. Indeed, it is. And for the number 8 car, he's dropping off the podium at the in the last couple of laps, and it looks like he'll come out in P4, but very towards to get back onto the podium.
Yeah, unfortunate for Kurt Ham as well. Looks like the same sort of issue for the number 33 McLaren as the fight is continuing here between Jean-Sebastien Bedard and Jeremy Manella. Romain Faux is right there. Now, things are a little bit different for Romain. Remember when we last checked in on him? He was the cork in the bottle. He was the car keeping everybody back in that black McLaren. Now he's on the attack as Gignac tries to get up the inside of Bedard. Manella tries to get up the inside of Bedard. My apologies. Right as the LMP3 makes their way through. This is a great battle. 3 different car brands represented in the same piece of racetrack, side by side on the way into turn 4. You don't want that to happen. That's given Romain just a little bit of extra pace that he needs.
And he'll work his way through turn 5, but he won't have anything to be able to throw there, or maybe he will in the inside of turn number 6. No, going to think better of it on the number 26, and Faux will stay in P11. Now, I've looked at the timing page, and I do believe, depending on where Michael Diaz is, I think we could be on the white flag lap. I was watching the timing page as we worked our way over the line. I don't think they're 30 seconds through the lap yet, so I believe this could be the final tour of the circuit for Michael Diaz and Boris Lavando. Lavando hasn't been able to make the move at turn 1 or turn 2. He's going to have to find somewhere because time is running out very, very rapidly for him.
Oh, certainly is. Boris all over the curb there on the way into turn 4, and he has a little look up the inside of 5. All about the exit from here. And it looks like Diaz is able to get a better run through the corner. He just needs to make sure that he has a little bit more in hand. They're going to come up on the GT4 battlers right at the end of this lap. This could be the final lap for the GT4s as well. You never know. Let's see what the pace is like here between Diaz and Ovando. Still a bit more space between them. Ovando just a little bit wide of the apex curb there. I don't think he's going to have a chance here. Diaz coming up on Aiden Young now. Will he be able to make his way past, or will he stay behind? He goes up the inside into the corner here, and that means Aiden Young is going to finish potentially 1 less lap than Aaron Myers, unless these guys make their way past out of the final turn.
And they will go through the final turn, and it will be Michael Diaz overtaking our race winner in the GT4s. They'll cross the line nearly together, but it is Michael Diaz who wins in the LMP3s. It is Aaron Myers who wins in the GT4s, and our top 2 in both of the categories come across the line as one. You can see them all on your screen. Great synergy there. You'll remember 30 minutes ago, we saw Diaz and Ovando lap Myers and Young as we crossed the 30-second mark. We watched them lap as we crossed the end of the hour. power, perfect synergy, and perfect pace. You can definitely tell from all 4 drivers. But from Michael Diaz and Aaron Myers, championship hopes have been reignited tonight.
Absolutely. Masterclass from Aaron Myers. Beautiful stuff indeed. 14th overall. Was able to hold off Aiden Young to the very end, and it all came down to the pit cycle, didn't it? You know, just driving the race smartly, making sure that you got the quicker pit stop. And there was a little bit of luck falling his way in terms of traffic, yes, but that takes nothing away from what we've seen from Aaron Myers here tonight, and also from Diaz and Ovando. You know, they were pushing each other all the way to the end, the teammates at Selpec Precision Racing, and it ended up being a fantastic fight to the end, lovely and clean.
Yeah, and shout out to our 2 third-place drivers, Jason Drescher, who albeit inherited that position with Daniel Zieger's drive-through, but Jason Drescher driving, it's fair to say, a lonely race and getting onto the podium, and Matthew Wyckoff as well, teammate, of course, to Aaron Myers. They finished, they finished 1 and 3, I should say, and actually the 2 third-place drivers crossed the line pretty much together as well. But here are your results. 36 laps of the Hungaroring saw an incredible race, which ended with Michael Diaz just about edging out his teammate Boris Angelovando to P1. 1 and 2 for the team, but the championship leader in the drivers only P2. Jason Drescher 3rd, Daniel Ziegers after his drive through 4th, and Daniel Oliver in 5th. Another lonely race for him. Ian Starker and Fernando Rodriguez 6th and 7th, with Zach Hebert, Christian Garreton and Lucas Wallace rounding out the top 10. Stephen Lakota was the only other driver on the lead lap, with Nikos Sanadakis a lap down. Lando Taker found himself 2 laps down, with Chris Massey 6th. 3 other drivers didn't really get going in this race. Eric Fenson, Mobin Khan and Chase Wilson will have to come back next week and try and regroup. In the GT4s, it was Aaron Myers and Aiden Young who finished 1 and 2 yet again, but this time Aaron Myers winning the race, which means Wyckoff getting another podium in a very solid display from the number 4 driver, with Caelan Tobin finishing in P4 in another quiet display but quietly competent for him in the 23. Michael Terrafino, Gabriel Gignac and Matt Benson in the top 7, Justin Bragg and Jeremy Manella and Roman Foe inside the top 10. It was Kurt Ham and Lambert Jesse in the top 12, with Mikey Smith, Travis Pruitt and Jean-Sebastien Bedal, the other drivers on the lead lap. Tristan Cadet was 4 laps down, and then drivers who didn't really get going themselves. Steve Gown, Roy Brown and Maxime David. The end of 36 drivers that we saw in our race here this evening, and looking immediately for drivers who want to join us for an interview here, Reese. I can already see we've got Michael Diaz, and yeah, here he is with you now.
Yeah, indeed. Welcome, Michael. Great win, and ultimately coming down to just executing the pit cycle correctly and taking advantage of traffic when it arose.
Yeah, before the pit cycles, I think I had a better run through traffic. But after I pitted, I got held up a little bit in the last 2 corners by some GT4 and gave Boris the lead. So at that point, I thought that was it. But he made a small mistake, and I managed to get in there and make it work.
Yeah, it looks like, once again, a very close battle between you two, especially after Road Atlanta last week. You were 5th in the championship coming into this round, and if the results continue like this, well, it could turn out to be a fantastic season for you.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. I'm just going to take it 1 track at a time. I honestly thought this would be a bad track for me tonight, based off quality. But the rest of the track, they look fun. More space to race, so yeah, just see how they go. I'll just take it 1 at a time.
Yeah, speaking of tracks, Manicourt, what are you expecting from there? I think the first sector in particular is going to be difficult for traffic with the very fast opening turns.
Yeah, it's probably going to be terrible, especially if it's raining. I think we have rain in the forecast. I don't know. I'll just deal with it when I get there. I'll just see which way I go and hope for the best, to be honest.
Well, congratulations on the win, Michael. Big points for you here today at the Hungaroring. Hope to see you next week.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Thank you for the broadcast every night, and yeah, talk to you later. Hopefully later.
Michael Diaz there in 2nd place in the LMP3s. Dara, it was Boris Ovando who will stay in the championship lead.
Yeah, welcome in, Boris. Congratulations on yet another podium. I mean, how are you feeling after that one? It's difficult to really judge. Of course, 1 and 2 for the team, still good points, but you must have wanted the win there.
A little disappointed. I'll be honest. It's a little disappointing because I thought I had the pace. One little mistake, a lockup, might get to the long side, and it was really tight. But man, traffic got me a couple of times where they just didn't stay to the racing line and block me off. Just, yeah, but it's still a podium, but disappointed because I think I had the win and maybe a fast lap.
Even without losing those points, of course, you're getting the point for pole position. There's always that. And also, considering that Mobin Khan, your closest rival coming into this race, wasn't able to finish. Zach Hebert finished down the order. Christian Garrett on as well. Michael might end up being third in the championship, but you might have a good 30-point lead coming out of this race. I mean, does that give you any consolation, or would you want 3 wins in a row, that is?
Well, you always want to be on the top step of the podium. I mean, I know I do. But that is a nice consolation. And honestly, I did have that in the back of my head. That's why I took it so easy. I didn't want to fight too much with Mike because you never know. I mean, I know we're teammates, but contact can always happen. Netcode can always happen with iRacing. And so it's just better to be safe than sorry. And that's been my approach. And so far it's working. I'm not going to change it.
Absolutely. So, and also, you've got to be safe next week at Magny Core. Is it a track you know much about? It's not really used on iRacing too much.
That's true. I haven't raced there. I know the track. I actually did some laps today. The rain is really gonna throw a hamper into things. It's pretty narrow. There's some really fast corners where there's only one line, and in the rain, it's really, really sketchy. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one to watch on broadcast. I'm sure it's gonna be really entertaining.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to speak to you again after that. But Boris, congratulations on the P2 and good luck for next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Boris Lavando there, our P2 man in this race. And finally, Reese, you've dragged him in. I nearly dragged him back. It's Jason Drescher, our P3 man in the LMP3s.
Yeah, tough race last week, Jason. 7th at Road Atlanta. This is a great turnaround.
Yeah, it's nice to be back on the podium. I definitely didn't expect it. I think Daniel might have had a penalty or something, but yeah, it feels good to be back and trying to get my speed back up. Lost a little bit, but yeah, it was a great race.
Yeah, turned out to be a lot cleaner than we were expecting up in the commentary box. We were expecting something like Road Atlanta with how tight and twisty this circuit is, but by and large, we saw that the action was pretty clean. What about you from the driver's perspective?
It definitely wasn't bad, but the first lap was pretty tough for me. I think I broke a little too hard, might have tapped somebody in the rear once or twice. But otherwise, it was clean after that, and getting through traffic wasn't really bad.
Well, yeah, definitely. And it came down to the pit cycle as well. How were you approaching this? Because it's so hard to pass around this place, at least when you're trying to fight with cars in your own class. So you had to rely on the pit stop to really secure your position.
Yeah, I ran it till the end, till I had one lap left, I think, and brought it in and hoped for a good pit stop. Luckily, I think I came out in 4th still and just tried to maintain the gap until I ended up getting 3rd. But the penalties were a big issue too. I think I had 11x by the end of the race, so I was worried about that.
Yeah, indeed. Well, you managed to escape the wrath of the iRacing automated stewards and ultimately a P3 for you at the Hungaroring. Long may that form continue.
I will take it. Thanks, guys.
All right, Jason Drescher finishing P3 in the LMP3 class. And now, Dara, we move to our GT4 class. A brilliant win for Aaron Myers.
Yeah, welcome in, Aaron. Congratulations on the win. Talk us through that race. Talk us through the strategy. Were you able to save a little bit of fuel? I mean, you did it in the pits, and you did it very well. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I kind of dropped the ball on the green flag, and Aiden got a good jump on me. Tried to fight him in through turns 2, 3, and 4, but I just didn't have the tire temps for him. So from there, I just wanted to keep the pressure and kind of distract him from thinking about the strategy and the pit stop, and made sure I was saving a little bit of fuel in the right places, and it just worked out for me tonight.
It worked out incredibly well for you. I mean, great consistency from you in qualifying. Have you done anything to change that qualifying pace, or have you found that coming to you this season a little bit more?
I would definitely say, I guess, to walk back a little bit, last season I tried to drive the same in qualifying that I did in the race, so I was missing some time in my qualifying This season, I've really put an emphasis on just getting everything I can out of the tire on that qualifying lap, and it's been working out really nicely.
It has. And I mean, your race pace has been working out nicely as well. I mean, just to bring reference to last season, of course, you got 1 win and 7 podiums in the 9 races. So far this season, you've got 2 wins and 4 podiums out of 4 races. So you've really turned the wick up. Can you make it 5 from 5 in podiums next week at Magny-Cours?
Unfortunately, I'm going to miss next week. It's my wife and I's anniversary, so that takes priority next week.
Happy anniversary, first and foremost, and hopefully that doesn't affect your championship chances too much. Well done, Aaron. Enjoy your next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll speak to you in a fortnight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Aaron Myers there, our winner in our GT4s, and now Reese, it's the P2 man. We always speak to Aaron, we always speak to Aiden, but this time Aiden's in P2.
Yeah, indeed. Feels a little bit different this time, Aiden. Yeah, but still, a brilliant battle between you and Aaron. He was hounding you the whole way through that first stint.
Yeah. I ran a higher downforce setup. I think he ran a bit of a lower downforce setup, so I couldn't really get away from him in the straights, but in the corners I could really pull away. I think that's where my difference was. Other than that, I just tried to focus ahead of me and not crack under the pressure. I think I did pretty well with that. My pit stop wasn't the best. I think my pit stop was 3 seconds slower than his. I think I got myself with the fuel again, just like I did against Floyd at 2 seasons ago at what was it, Laguna Seca, I think. Yeah, it was just unfortunate there for me in the pit stop, but I had 3 laps left of fuel at the end of the race, so I definitely way overfueled. My thing told me 25. I think I took 27 or 28 just to be safe, and it was too much.
Oh, well, regardless, it was still a brilliant race from you. You had to survive a lot of assaults from all sides, particularly as the LMP3s were making their way through. What did you think of the traffic situation here?
Well, it was definitely more on the hectic side, just like I said it was going to be when y'all asked me how I thought it was going to go last week. That's definitely pretty sketchy in some places, especially at the chicane. No, one time I forgot, I don't know who it was, but all I know was a white LMP3 car. He sent it up the inside and then kind of locked up his brakes. When he did, is like he basically slammed on the brakes, and I just have nowhere to go just because the track is just so narrow. So that place, and then the last sector. Started last sector to the end of the final sector was also pretty sketchy with the traffic. It was like you'd see them put the nose to the inside, and it's like once they had their nose to the inside, it's just like, oh, cool. Well, there goes all the time I just gained.
Yeah, well, regardless, another strong result for you here this week, and with Aaron missing next week's race at Magny-Cours, could be a potential for you to really get ahead in the championship. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Magny-Cours, though. That's going to be a fun one. That's one of my favorite tracks, so hopefully it's a good race for me.
Yes, hopefully we get a chance to speak to you then, Aiden. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, see you next week.
Aiden Young there, rounding out our driver interviews for tonight here, Dara. And wow, what a race that was. Entertaining, both on the on-track action and on the strategy battles as well. I tell you what, even though we won't be seeing Aaron Myers at Magny-Cours next week, I think the season at large is going to be fantastic between those two.
It is. It only just means that he can't really afford another drop round because he won't be picking up any points next week. It means he's going to have to be on it when we get back in a couple of weeks' time, but there's nothing to say that he won't be there to really hammer home his advantage. Magny-Cours as well will be in 7 days' time. Not a track we go to very often, but a track that should prove to be incredibly exciting and maybe with a bit of precipitation in the air. Many thanks to all of you who have watched along tonight on the RaceSpotTV YouTube channel. We're back tomorrow night for some more PRL action, so make sure you tune in for that. But in 7 days' time, myself and Reese will be back for some more LMP3 GT4 challenge action from Magny-Cours. Cannot wait for it. Hope to see you there. We'll see you at Magny-Cours.